Hi, Elevate. Hi, Impact. So glad you're here. Well, we've been in a series teaching us as a church how to respect everyone always, how to love everyone always, how to welcome everyone always. And today I want to teach you how you can serve everyone always. And we're going to do this by unpacking a couple scriptures. And I want to give you the three essentials. And if you get this right, that all throughout your day, the people that you come in contact with, the people that you don't fully get or they don't fully get you, that you will have the ability to serve everyone always. But first, let me jump in and give you a little backstory. During the days of Jesus, the Roman culture was spreading. Rome wanted world domination. And one of the central tenets of what it meant to be a part of the Roman movement centered around your identity. Now, there were 7 classes in Roman identity, this hierarchy. At the very, very top, you had the Caesar. Wherever the Caesar went, whatever room that he walked into, there would be 24 elders, and they would follow him, and they would sing out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord." They called him the Lord, the King of Kings. And they would almost worship in every room that he went to. He had all authority and all power. And people thought of him as a god. Underneath, you had the Senate. And the Senate was filled with 600 politicians who would govern the provinces of Rome as they continued to spread out and take over the world. And then you had the equestrians. These were the people who had bought themselves in to a place of power. They had a certain amount of acreage. They had a certain amount of resources. And they could buy themselves power because of the ways that they had made money. And when they died, they could pass their seat down to one of their children. Then you had the Decurion. These were kind of like the city politicians, the city senate. And these 4 classes represented less than 3% of the Roman population, but they held all the power. They had all the influence. They were a minority, but had all the resources. And there was a massive gap between these 4 and the bottom 3. Underneath the Decurion was a citizen, a Roman citizen, and that could get them into certain places. And underneath them were freedmen, people who had formerly been slaves and servants. And the lowest of the low was a servant. Now, what you have to understand is Rome believed that, man, if you did a few things as a servant, you could become a freedman. And if you worked it and tried to climb the ladder, you could become a citizen. And if you did enough and made enough money, you could then maybe move into the Decurions. And you could keep climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. And this is where Jesus enters in. A culture that has been built on climbing ladders. Does it sound familiar to today? A whole bunch of people who find their identity in the title or the position that they have. People who think that they are okay because they find themselves in a certain place or with a certain bank account or live in a certain zip code or drive a certain car, find themselves going, "I'm good." And Jesus comes into this scene and they begin to see, man, he's not born into the best hospitals. He doesn't go through the best schools. He doesn't wear the finest clothes. He enters in as a servant, the lowest of the low. In a city where majority of the people were illiterate, he's born. He's placed in a manger where horses would get food and drink. I mean, you talk about entering into the world. He's come from the highest high, and he enters into the lowest of the low. And it says something. It says something about the heart of our God. It says something about the gospel. It says something about good news. It says something that I need you to know today. And the first churches, as they kind of gathered around, they had these hymns that they would cry out and they would sing. And the first thing that you have to recognize, the first essential, if you are going to serve everyone always, it starts with your mindset. Look what it says in Philippians chapter 2, verse 5. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. It begins up here. How you view, how you see, how you understand everyone always. And Paul's saying, man, before we ever sing the hymn, before we cry out in regards to this poem that I'm about to read over you, you must, church, have the same mindset as Christ. Verse 6, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. I mean, he was up there with God, at the right hand with God, and he wasn't going to use it to his own advantage. And that word advantage means that he wasn't going to snatch or take or grab or exploit anyone beneath him. It's not what this Jesus was going to do. Rather, verse 7, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, a lowest low, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Now, to the Roman culture, the only thing that was worse than a servant was the servant who died publicly on a cross. Jesus, I want you to get this, because in our culture, man, we think about it, the path of ascent, trying to climb ladders, taking advantage of anyone who's beneath us. We will serve people who will serve us back. And we will climb, and we will climb, and we will climb. And I'm going to be honest, I am afraid of heights. And Jesus sat at the right hand of God. And he looked down at a world that was both beautiful and broken and fractured. And he had all the power in the world. And he didn't enter in with the esteem. He humbled himself. And he shows us, he teaches us the mindset we must have to humble ourselves. It's not the path of ascent, my friends. It is the path of descent. It is an upside down kingdom where we are asked to lower ourselves to serve others. What is your mindset? Is it to climb and take advantage and to take and find your identity in a position or status? Or is it the mindset of Christ with every relationship that you have? I remember when I was a kid, I'd go to these birthday parties. They'd be eating cake, and one of the spouses would be like, look over to the other spouse and go, how much longer is this party gonna go? 15 more minutes. And like, okay, what are we gonna do? And the dad would come out with like a broom. We're gonna do limbo. And the whole game was the question, how low can you go? And I was never flexible, and I'd always get out in the third round. I was like, I hate this game. It's a terrible game. But this is what service is. It's the question, how low can you go? Jesus at the top. How low can you go? Humbled himself. Took on human flesh. Became a servant. And he went to the cross for you. So for any of us who want to find our identity in anything else, Jesus goes to the cross. How low will he go? He will make himself a public spectacle so that you can be made right with God. So that you can experience an identity not of climbing ladders, but an identity that has its mindset transformed to be what Christ desires you to be, to set you free. That's good news, friends. The second essential that you must have if you are going to serve everyone always is your posture. It's the posture of your heart. I want to take you to one of my favorite verses. It comes from John chapter 13. It's a story that's quite familiar. But it's Passover season and the festival is about to happen, and people are crowding into the city of Jerusalem. And Jesus gathers his disciples, many of them high school age students. And they're around a table. And not kind of like the table that we think of with chairs. It was more like a coffee table. And there'd be carpets and blankets, and they're kind of down, and they're reclining, leaning against the table, kind of on their left shoulder. They'll eat with their right hand, and they're all just around this table. The food has been served, and it's just around. And I imagine Peter's over to the side. He's telling stories about some catch that he had out in the Sea of Galilee. But look what Jesus begins to think about. Verse 3. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things, everything, under his power, in his grip, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal. He took off his outer clothing, and he wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin, and he began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. They're all seated. Food's there. You don't get the sense that Jesus is going first to dive in and get the food. There's this orphanage that's really near and dear to the heart of my wife and I and our family. And this leader of this orphanage, there's like a school connected to it, a health clinic. They're doing incredible things through this village in Ghana. And he, every night, welcomes different people to come and sit at his table. Sometimes they're kids and faculty members from the school, other leaders from the city, missionaries who have come in. And he has this massive kind of steel bin that has all the food in. They've been cooking all afternoon. And he'll come and massive table, and he'll begin to serve people. And he'll serve the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And my wife talks about that he will just go around and serve 30 people. And usually when he gets done, he sees that the first person has finished their meal, and he'll be like, "Are you still hungry?" "Yeah." And we'll start to serve. And he'll make round 2, and he'll go around. Before he ever feeds himself, the posture is not for him to go first, it's to go last. If you're gonna serve everyone always, what's the posture of your heart? Is it me first? I gotta get mine, I gotta do this for me? Or is it a posture that allows yourself to go last? This is what Jesus does. He's okay to go last. He steps away from the table, takes off his outer robe, grabs a basin, fills it with water, takes a towel, and then he walks one disciple at a time and begins to wash their feet. Now, they had taken baths, they were clean, but they didn't wear shoes. They either wore sandals or they were bare feet. And whenever they'd walk into a room and usually would have a meal, there would be a servant, usually a Gentile, or somebody else who would come and wash the feet. But Jesus, teacher and a rabbi, goes and gets down on his knees. And I imagine him starting with maybe Andrew, taking his sandals off and just beginning to pray and bless Andrew's feet, the kind of life that Andrew's gonna live, and begin to wash his feet, dry his feet, and then move to the next disciple, to the next disciple, to the next disciple. A few years ago, this message was taught to my son in Promised Land. He came home and he's like, "Wow, why don't we do this more often? I mean, Jesus did it. Shouldn't we wash people's feet?" And I was like, "Well, most people don't like their feet touched. That's why we created shoes and socks." He's like, "But why don't we do this?" Well, Emerson was 5 at the time, and he had a buddy who was 7, and the two of them had this idea about this orphanage in Ghana because the kids needed shoes. And so they were able to find 200 Crocs that were basically donated, and they went to Ghana, and they brought these Crocs. My wife and the mother of the 7-year-old were talking to some of the leaders, and Emerson and this 7-year-old went, and they found this green basin, they filled it with water. Kind of brought that basin over, and as child after child, these orphans began to come. He began to do what he saw done and taught about in Promised Land. He got on his knees, and he began just to wash the feet of these friends of his, to pray over them. Here's a picture of it, and every time I see it, it melts my heart. And then they gave these kids new shoes. And that's a posture, but I started thinking about this. I started reflecting, who really is around the table with Jesus? I mean, he's gonna have to get on his knees and take off the sandals of the man who's going to betray him. Just quick time out. When's the last time you have served a person who has betrayed you? He's gonna have to take off the sandals of a person who doubted him, who doubted what God had done through him. You have any of those people in your lives, the doubters, who are like, you can't do that. You'll never be good enough. I don't think you can actually get into that school. I don't think you have what it takes. And Jesus on his knees with a basin and a towel, and he's serving the doubters. When's the last time you served a doubter? Who else is there? A traitor? I mean, that's kind of what a tax collector was to the Hebrew people, because they sided more with Rome than they actually did with the Hebrew people. And Jesus didn't have a wall up. He's still on his knees, and he's serving. Or maybe a denier. And Peter comes across all the way around, and he sees Peter, and he gets down, and he begins to start to wash Peter's feet, this denier. And Peter has a problem with it. And I want to get there in a moment, but I just want to have you understand that Jesus was dealing with the doubters and the betrayers, the deniers and the traitors. He was dealing with all of the people that we come in contact with in our schools, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces. He went through what we went through and still got on his knees and had a posture to serve everyone always. Can you do that? They don't vote like you. Can you still serve them? They don't believe the same things that you believe. Can you still serve them? They have done things that have hurt you, and yet can you have the posture in your heart to still serve them? The mindset says, how low can you go? And the posture of your heart says, you know what, I will go last. It is not about my agenda. It is about you, Jesus, and I will get on my knees and I will serve. But look at Peter. Peter's amazing. He came, verse 6, to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. No, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. And Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Peter's like, don't even get close to me. Don't wash this. Don't get close to this. And Jesus goes, no. I see it and I know it, and it's okay. It's not gonna prevent me from still serving you. I know what you're going to do. I know what you think. It doesn't matter. I don't play by Rome's rules, or hierarchy in class dictate who can serve or do what. That's not what the kingdom of God is all about. And I'm still going to wash you. And then Peter, being so human, so honest, goes, well, if you're gonna wash my feet, then wash every part of me. And Jesus goes, no. You've already taken a bath. I just needed to clean your feet. And I needed to show you what service was all about. What's your mindset? Will you serve everyone always? Is it the mindset of Christ? What's the posture of your heart? Can you serve the betrayers and the deniers, the doubters and the traitors? Can you actually serve them like Christ? Or will you only serve people who will help you advance and climb the ladder? And Jesus continues on. He puts the basin down, the towel down, puts on the robe. He sits back down at the table, and he looks at all of the guys, and he goes, do you know what I was doing? They don't get it. They're kind of dumbfounded. Why would you do this? And he says, you all call me teacher or rabbi, and you call me Lord, and that is rightly so. I am your teacher. I am your Lord. And then he says these words, verse 14, now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. What's he saying? The third essential that you must have if you're going to serve everyone always is that of action. Mindset, posture, and action. And Jesus is telling his disciples, you call me teacher, you call me Lord, and if you say that with your words, then do what I do. If I welcome everyone, then you welcome everyone. If I respect everyone, then you respect everyone. If I serve everyone, then you serve everyone. If I get on my knees and I wash people's feet, then you go and wash people's feet. If I invite people in, you invite people in. Do what I do. And that is critical for the church. If Jesus does it, we must do it. Amen? And it's critical. Jesus says, and if you do this, you're gonna be blessed. You will be blessed. And that word blessing in Hebrew is a beautiful word. It's the word that's like connected to the deepest levels of satisfaction. It's connected to the favor of God. And in a culture that is so good at trying to ascend and climb and search and look for this thing that might give us some sense of satisfaction, Jesus says, if your mindset is like me, if your posture is like me, and if you will act like I act, you will find yourself experiencing favor. If you continue to read that hymn from Philippians chapter 2, it's beautiful. It says, man, he humbled himself. He took like the life of a servant, went to the cross, and because he did that, God exalted him to the highest place, to the place that his name is higher and above every name, and that whenever his name is mentioned, everyone should bow and every tongue should confess. Why? Because he didn't come in with power. He came in with humility and a heart and a posture to serve. Mindset, posture, action. Here's a little easier way for you to remember it. Mindset means to go low. Posture means to go last. And action means to go love. Go low, go last, go love. And that is our invitation, that if we have the mindset of Christ, the posture in our hearts of Jesus, and the action to do what Jesus did, we will go low, go last, and go love. But I want to get super practical with you. Because whether you're in a school cafeteria, whether you're walking through the marketplace, whether you're going into downtown Chicago, wherever you are this week, I want to give you some crystal clear handles and some space for you to reflect on how you can serve everyone always. Because I know my own heart, that if I give myself just an inch of wiggle room, I'll agree with it, I'll celebrate the ideas, but I'll give myself an out. And I don't want any of us to have an out this week. I want every one of us to commit this week to serving everyone always. And I want to get it super practical. And it begins with this. Who? who are you gonna serve? And maybe let's just do this. Maybe just put your hands out right now. Maybe think that like in one hand you have a basin and another hand you have a towel, because whatever room you enter into, a boardroom, a classroom, a living room, man, you as a disciple of Jesus, you carry these two. And who right now is the Spirit of God whispering for you to serve this week? And don't go safe. Take a risk and think of someone outside your comfort zone. Maybe someone who's doubted you. Maybe someone who doesn't believe exactly what you believe. Maybe someone who's betrayed you, denied you. Maybe God might be whispering to you their name right now. Would you just name that person? I'm gonna try. I want that mindset, I want that posture, I want that action. Who, and have their name. Second question is where. Where this week will you serve them? You can go to their house. Are you gonna show up at the marketplace? Are you gonna take them out for coffee? Where? With those hands wide open, just receive from God. Where will you serve them? Third, how? How can you serve them? Who, where, how? How can you serve them this week? I was talking to a junior high student last night after service, and I said, how can you serve this week? And he's like, I'm gonna let my younger brother ride shotgun. I was like, awesome. Well done. Well done. How will you serve this week? And last one, when? Who, where, how, and when? When will you serve them this week? Some of you might say, okay, I gotta give myself a deadline by Tuesday at noon. Some of you slackers will say Saturday by midnight. But what I want to challenge you, put this into practice. And when you go who, where, how, when, you know what Jesus will say? Well done, do it again. And you'll go who, where, how, when, and Jesus will say, awesome, do it again. Go low, go last, go love. And when you continue to do this, I guarantee you it will be your mindset. It will become your posture. It will become the way in which you live your life. And as low as you can go, this is what God will do. He will raise you up. He will exalt you. I don't know about you, but I don't want to climb ladders anymore. It doesn't work. It doesn't satisfy me. But when I can actually get on my knees